Today we are honored to welcome Kirsten Karchmer to the show today. I'm very excited about this episode. She wrote an amazing book called Seeing Red, all about fertility and cycles and everything we can do to kind of optimize our wellness in a sense. So she is one of the first reproductive acupuncturists as well, and she has many avenues of service of helping women. I think it's very powerful information that she has, and it's like I said, it's very important. And it's also applicable to everyone, right? Because we can learn in a sense and apply it to our own life. It may not be direct, but it can be indirect, right? So there's certain lifestyle factors that we may not be aware of that apply to everyone. So I'm very excited about this. And how are you doing today?
I'm doing amazing. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm excited for our conversation. And it's
Absolutely.
really true. People say, well, I'm not trying to get pregnant, so I don't want to listen to a fertility one. But fertility is an important thing to pay attention to in general. Like, our fertility is basically our replacement rate, right? That's really fecundity. But, when our fertility rates are going down, then our replacement rates are going down. And that affects everyone who lives in this world, right? Because if we don't have enough younger people to take care of the older people, it's quite problematic. But it's also kind of our canary in the coal mine. Our fertility is really a reflection of our overall health. It's a reflection of how we live, both for male and female fertility. And so, sort of like back of a napkin, assessing your fertility after this conversation, whether you're trying to get pregnant or not, is really a way of assessing your optimal health. How close are you to optimal health, and what are the small areas that you could start working on to move yourself closer to that? So if someday you want to get pregnant, you're going to be ready for that. Or if you're past, like, I'm done having children, I still want to be optimally healthy. So all of those things even still apply to me as someone who's not even having a cycle anymore.
100%. I'm very interested to hear your story and how you got into the healing place and writing the book and being of service the way that you are today.
Thank you. It's a long story, but I'll try and make it as short as possible. I started my career as a linguistics professor at the University of Texas, and then very quickly, I was a competitive athlete when I was growing up, and I got diagnosed with MS. I couldn't walk without a cane. I slept most of the day. I just would teach and sleep and teach and sleep. And a friend of mine, I had a job teaching in Korea at a Korean college the next year, and a friend of mine was like, who I was doing the Korean Special Forces training, and I know that seems weird for somebody who can't walk without a cane, but I was an athlete my whole life, and I was like, well, if I'm going to go to a foreign country that I've never been to, and I didn't realize Korea is like the safest place you can go practically, but I thought, well, I'm disabled, I should try to do something to sort of be, take care of myself, I'll be alone. And what I liked about the Korean Special Forces training was I could continue to train in Korea, but more importantly, they weaponize canes. They use canes as a weapon. I was like, well, I have a cane with me every single day, so I should probably learn that, because then I could, even if I'm weak, I can use my cane to like kick some ass if I need to. Anyways, I end up going to an acupuncturist. The acupuncturist at the end of the session says, look, here's the deal. When you were born, your body, your constitution, your organs, all of your systems, they were perfect. They were very high functioning. And your disease was very nascent. It was very, non-impactful. But as you were growing up, you were training a lot as a gymnast, training. And as that happened, you're on the outside. This is the important thing to learn from this story. On the outside, I kept looking healthier and healthier, stronger, leaner, more muscle, right? And, I was still eating really well. It just wasn't enough. I was developing, and I was training 6 or 8 hours a day, almost to throwing up every day. And so on the outside, I was the person who's like, I am as healthy as anybody on the planet. But then I got MS. And so the doctor, the acupuncturist, was like, look, your constitution is destroyed. On the outside, you look really good, but you're exhausted all the time. All you want to do is sleep. You don't have periods anymore. You can't digest food. You have gas and bloating all the time. You've got all this pain. And now we have this muscle weakness. And so he's like, my job is to make your constitution, like, here's a disease, here's your constitution now, to rebuild all of the organ systems in the constitution until it gets stronger than your disease. And if we're able to do that, hopefully you can go into remission or just have less symptoms. Like, let's just see how far we can take it. And I was like, wow, that makes perfect sense. Like, I became an acupuncturist in that minute, because it was the first time that exactly what he explained, it's like a Cosmo quiz, like, what kind of lover are you? I was like, that's me. That is exactly what's going on for me, And within a few months, before I was having like the kind of MS where you have episode, no break, another episode, meaning like a lot of symptoms. no breaks between symptoms. And then I started having 1 or 2 days between episodes, and a week between episodes, and a month between episodes, and 3 months between episodes. And the episodes were lasting shorter, and the intensity of the symptoms were getting better. And so I could see that my body was healing. And this is like not I always want to be very clear, like this is not a cure for MS. It is a way of reestablishing the functionality of the organs to see how can your body function when everything works. What does the disease, whatever the disease is, do with a fully functional person? And for me, I went into remission. I was in remission for almost 30 years. Then I went through menopause, and menopause kind of tweaked me a little bit, and I had to it took me a couple of years to sort of get back to where I was. So I ended up going to acupuncture school, and in acupuncture school, I was lucky. I'd already been living in Korea. I speak a bunch of languages and a little bit of Chinese, and a new professor had come to this college just from China, like a few days ago. So his English wasn't very good yet, and he was a world-renowned reproductive acupuncturist. And I became his protege because basically I was his translator. Even if it was like he was speaking English and I was translating his English to the students. They're like, what'd he say? And I was like, what he said is, And the thing about the menstrual cycle that is like an unfair advantage for women is that when it happens every month, we think of it as a curse. This like horrible thing that we have to endure, but we shouldn't have to endure it. We can fix all those things that are problematic relatively easily. But each month, every single thing that happens, from the amount of days between periods, the day of ovulation, the quality and quantity of cervical discharge, the kind of PMS, the intensity, how much PMS, what symptoms you have, how much bleeding, the color of blood, the days of bleeding, clotting, all of these things, temperatures, give us unbelievably valuable diagnostic information about how the constitution is functioning, and that can guide us very straightforwardly to repair those problems. And those are also the same things that predict your fertility. So, I became the first reproductive acupuncturist in North America. I had 3 clinics in 3 cities. I treated over 10,000 women in my clinical career. And then, like we talked earlier, I read a study in 2016 that said only 3%, less than 3% of couples could afford fertility treatments, and that in many countries, the cost of one IVF, meaning in vitro fertilization, is the cost of 1 year's salary. And to be honest, I cried when I read that. I was really ashamed. I'm about to cry now because I think how lucky I was to get to work with so many couples. But then I thought about, but 97% of the people who are as desperate and concerned and stressed as the women who are coming to my clinic they got nothing. So I set out to build a digital twin of myself, and it took 8 years based on 10,000 hours of recorded consultations and, a lot of work. And that's where we are today, building the first operating system in women's health to try to democratize access to health for all women. Because while fertility is really important, all of the things that impact women's health, like polycystic ovarian syndrome, endometriosis, PMDD, which is looks like a severe form of PMS, but it's a little bit different. All of these things are correlated with the diseases that kill women: diabetes, heart disease, estrogen-dependent cancers, and stroke. So we believe that by building an operating system that can help to repair the underlying issues that are causing these problems, that we can actually increase the longevity and wellness and happy, healthy lives of women, including their fertility and all these other conditions. Whew, that's a long one. But if you skip a piece, it doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's an amazing story. Thank you for sharing that. Something that stuck out to me is you said you're looking really good on the outside, right? Then you had this suffering on the inside. And that's an important distinction because there is a difference between health and fitness, right? Of course, there's a lot of synergy between them, but there's many people who are fit on the outside, but they're dying on the inside. I was actually one of them many years ago. I was super fit, but I didn't know much about health. But yeah, I mean, because we look at people, this person is so healthy, but little do we know they're suffering from high amounts of inflammation. Maybe they're super insulin resistant. They may not have an outright chronic disease yet, but they're right on the verge of it.
I agree. I totally agree. And I think that unfortunately, I'm big on social media, so I don't mean to bash social media, but I think for women, it is part of the problem because Instagram is such a visual social media experience, and you can use filters and all these things that it sets this like unrealistic bar for beauty and fitness, right? The looking fit. It's not even really about being fit. It's about looking fit, about wearing the right clothes, drinking the right smoothie, saying you do yoga, you're a vegan, you're a CrossFitter. It's interesting, like women who exercise to exhaustion are 70% less likely to get pregnant than those who don't.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, stress, I'm sure we'll talk about later, but, just kind of depresses the entire system in a sense. But, like, as you said, we work out super hard, a lot of us, to look good because that's what we see in culture. That's just so what we aspire toward, to look good, right? But fitness is about so much more than that. It's really about feeling good and, doing what your genes expect of you to be fit and healthy and all these things. And somebody may be working out super hard, but they're eating terrible. They're sleeping terrible. Maybe they're just super stressed. And again, I can relate to that in a sense. And it's not a good place to be. Like, once we feel good and with like mindset plays a huge role as well. And just being like, feeling comfortable with who we are, it's so important. And just kind of adjusting your health journey to you and personalizing, that's where it's at for sure.
I couldn't agree more. And I think, one thing that I've just, like, having been like a hardcore athlete, big wave surfer, I mean, like, I'm a go-getter. And now what I've been doing is I switched to doing these, basically, if you've seen like old Chinese people in the park anywhere, and they're doing Tai Chi, but they're also doing these exercises where they're like flailing their arms in all kinds of weird ways and stuff. These all come from Kung Fu, and they're basically these kinds of full body exercise. They look like nothing. And especially because these people are like 80 years old and they make it look so easy because they're just like, they're flipping hard. Some of them are incredibly hard, but because they're more isometric, they're body based, you can do a little bit at a time. That's what I've been recommending because everybody's so exhausted. Like, if you're exhausted, if your energy is not an 8 out of 10 and you exercise hard, you are going to go into flight or fright for that exercise because you simply don't have you don't have the resources to get through that workout without some adrenaline. We want to keep people out of flight or fright. So I've been working on developing like an exercise routine for people who are high cortisol, high inflammation, who really need significant down regulation, but still want to move. And so working on learning these exercises, some of them I learned in acupuncture college, and coming up with like a little thing. But if anybody's interested, if you just go on to whatever social media you look at and be like Tai Chi exercises, you can see, some person, usually a Chinese person who is extremely flexible and beautiful, just you have to slow it. Some of them you have to slow down so slow to be like, what exactly are they even, they're like, but what's interesting is each piece of that movement is designed to open something or strengthen something or stabilize something. So the whole action is actually really beneficial. And it reminds me of a study that was published, I think in like 1980, like a long time ago. And the study was to try to validate that if you did 30 minutes of cardiovascular work, you would positively affect your blood pressure and cholesterol. Reasonable. I'm like, you don't need really a study for that, but okay. And they're like, but we need a control group. Who does nothing? And like, I know, Tai Chi. That was the control group for the study. They're like, well, they do nothing. They're just like, just old people, whatever. And then when they got the data back after 4 months, they did the exact 30 minutes of Tai Chi, 30 minutes of cardio, same amount. And then, of course, the Tai Chi outperformed the cardio.
Wow.
Because what people don't realize is when you're doing something like Tai Chi, for 30 minutes you're doing squats. You're swinging and you drop down into a squat, and you turn and you drop into a different squat, and you turn and you drop into another squat, and then you lift your leg, So you are actually getting all of this full body movement, but in a really controlled and opening way. So I know we're not going to talk about exercise today, but
yeah, Qigong as well. That's something I've talked about many times in the show. I've been doing that for quite some time. It's one of the pillars of Chinese medicine, right? I mean, really kind of cultivating that qi. It's really restorative once you get into the habit of it. And yeah, it's so beneficial in so many ways for sure.
yeah. And have you experimented with much breath work?
Yeah, I do breath work along with meditation every day. So
Nice. I just discovered I really hated breath work for a long time. I don't know, it was just like, seemed like a chore. It's really boring. And then I found a guy on YouTube, and I've never met him, but his show is called Breathe with Sandy. And he has about at least 40 free videos from
Really?
10 minutes up to 90 minutes.
Wow.
And they're beautifully produced. He's an impossibly good teacher. I just can't promote him enough because I think that it's a real easy way to start with breath work. Because just start with like 5 or 10 minutes, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, once you start like to cultivate habits, it's good to kind of have a framework, right? Because I had that experience as well. And for me, I just find three practices that work for me and I stick to it, right? Like box breathing, uh, alternate nostril breathing, and carbon dioxide retention, which is basically like breathing out twice as long as breathe in to kind of train you to breathe less in a sense.
Yep.
That's what I do, what works for me, but ultimately we have to find what works for us and finding great teachers as you talked about. So thank you.
I just found a real difference taking, like, instead of just doing it myself, like that's what I used to do too. I'd be like 4-7-8 breathing and then, you know, whatever. But I can be lazy, you know, and not finish everything or hurry or not hold my breath as long. But I find that when I do it with Sandy, when he's like, okay, hold your breath, and he sets the goal for it, you know what I mean? And then I'm like watching him like, oh, I can't hold my breath anymore. He always says, when you think you can't hold your breath anymore, count down from 10. See if you can hold it a little bit longer. And I'm like, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
Yeah, it's good to have that accountability, you know, someone who has actually walked the path and is a great teacher. It's very invaluable. Like you can take on habits so much easier, and you may not need it for everything, right? Some things come easier to other people, but if you're having a difficult time with something, you know, find that person who you really vibe with, and they can teach you the path for sure.
Yep, I agree, totally.
Yeah. So you also talk a lot about fertility. I'm very curious to hear the stats on fertility these days. Like, what are we dealing with so we can actually learn the path forward?
Yeah, so approximately there's, you know, a few different studies, but between 1 in 5 and 1 in 6 couples are struggling to get pregnant. What's really material is that in the past, male factor was associated with about 20% of infertility when a couple can't get pregnant, and now that has gone up from 20% to 50%. So men really need to start paying attention to how they're living. And I think part of the problem, it's not dissimilar from the women, is these men are like working really hard. They're playing really hard, which, you know, when you're young, that's what you do. It's not a criticism. Their diet is pretty good, but because they're really fit, they're like, I'm really fit. I work out, I drink my smoothies, you know, I do drink like a lot of alcohol, I smoke a little weed, you know, like whatever. And so what we're seeing though is that what's really interesting about male fertility is that a man's semen analysis is predictive of his likelihood of getting, like, poor semen parameters is predictive of earlier onset prostate cancer, more severe prostate cancer, diabetes, and heart disease. And so basically they're your canary in the coal mine as well, because the quality and quantity of sperm that you can make is a reflection of how much your body likes how you're living, how you're working out, how you're eating, how you're digesting, how you're resting, all those things. And the same for women's menstrual cycle. And so, you know, I just think we have a lot of problems in the fertility industry. We have, you know, assisted reproductive technologies, which can be really important and valuable for some people, but I think we're taking everybody who can't get pregnant and pushing them into assisted reproductive technology. I think that's a real misstep, because in my clinical experience, I found that probably 70 to 80% of them can repair their own fertility issues if they have a little bit of help figuring out, like, what are the underlying issues. Like, you know, like we said earlier, doing CrossFit or exercising to exhaustion 4 or more times per week decreases your likelihood of getting pregnant by 70%. Almost no women know that. So this woman's like, I'm doing everything. She thinks because she's going to CrossFit, she's improving her fertility, but unknowingly, she's actually really working against her fertility. And our job is to help women to identify those and then teach them how to repair them.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of paradoxes, right? We have to kind of learn what works best for us. And ultimately, are you familiar with the percentage of couples who are having trouble reproducing?
Well, it's about, you know, it's like somewhere between 20, you know, 1 in 5 would be 20%. So like
Okay.
between 15 and 20%. And that's diagnosed. So I have talked to, like, I do a live show on TikTok most days, and I have talked to thousands and thousands of women who weren't my patients who were like, oh, well, I've been trying for 5 years. which after 1 year, you basically are diagnosed with infertility. But I was like, well, what does your doctor say? And she says, well, I haven't really talked to my doctor about it. And I saw that a lot because I think there is a fundamental mistrust of physicians right now, unfortunately, especially around women's health, because they don't have a toolbox that's that useful. And what happens is there's a lot of gaslighting that happens. They're like, it's okay, that's normal. Everybody has period pain. If your period is like, even up to 40 days, that's fine. Because, it's like, I don't know why they tell them that you can fix your period with birth control. That's just not true. And so we have to do a better job of really educating women about, what is normal, and then how do we give them the tools to repair it.
Absolutely. I'm glad that you mentioned that most of the time we can do this naturally, right? It's great that we have these reproductive tools, but ultimately, I think it's always better to cultivate that power within, if at all possible, right? Through lifestyle factors, just education, right? So we can actually start to make these small changes in our lives. So I feel like that right there is a powerful insight for us to actually kind of take on and think about.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, you think about it's just, to me, a lot of it is needless suffering, right? Because they have not been informed or educated properly about what they can do and what's possible, and then they're just like, I don't know what to do, and then there's some products on the market that I think are a little predatory, that actually don't really help and sometimes are injurious. And so just, I feel like my job is to sort of be the guardian of all women, like finding the things that are shite and getting rid of them, and then re-educating and building more stuff to make it easier and easier, like really breaking down. It's basically biohacking. We don't use that term because that's not necessarily an appealing term. It's not a very feminine term. Like, men really like biohacking, and I think only a certain subset of women like that term biohacking, but I really love it. But I'm part of that subset, probably, super type A. So, it's really just about this gentle way of how do we help women to become the hero of their story?
I really like that.
Right? When we
Guardian of
go to
women.
when we go to acupuncture and you lay on the table and you get a treatment, like when my patients used to get pregnant, they would say, Kirsten knocked me up. They're like, oh, Kirsten knocked me up, or I got knocked up by Kirsten, whatever, And I hated that. I knew they were saying it to be kind and sweet, and it, it's flattering, of course, but I always wanted them to be the hero. And so, when we did the pilot for the app, the first version of the app didn't even have all the AI in it, and it was just a very quick version to see will it work at all. And I told my team, I was like, okay, it needs to be at least 50% as good as me, otherwise it's not going to be that helpful. But even if it's 50, I mean, my success rates were extremely high, and so I was like, even if it's 50% as good as me, it will still help people. We should still build it. And then the data scientist came in and he was like, oh, we finished the regression analysis. And I said, it didn't work, did it? Because he was a little bit deflated, and I was like, it didn't work, did it? And he goes, oh, it worked. And I said, did she get close to me? She being Kai. And he goes, no, but you got close to her. And I was like, what? And he said, she beat you by 6%. And I was like, God dang, I can't believe that. And at first I was really kind of embarrassed. I'm like, I must be crap, because if the app beat me, this first version of the app still beat me with no acupuncture, no human interaction. In the app, they increased the likelihood of getting pregnant by 260%. An IUI insemination increases by 10, IVF 25%. And what I remembered, it's kind of back to that whole hero of your own story. When you go to acupuncture, you get a treatment, and then the acupuncture says, eat more meat, or don't eat so much candy, or, here's a few things to try to incorporate, and you do it a little bit. But in the app, I am determining, it's as if I lived with the person, right? So the chef is planning, you do the consultation, and the chef looks at every problem that might be contributing to this problem and starts menu planning for that. What macros do you need? What's the ratio of protein, fiber, and fat do you need? Do you have insulin resistance? Do you have PCOS? And really using food as medicine. So instead of just eating one extra piece of steak each week, if this person needs to make blood, they're getting menus full of vitamin B12 and iron-rich foods, making sure that she can digest it. And so, and then looking at if she's having digestive symptoms, oh, she's really stressed. Okay, we give you a therapist. Talk to the therapist every day so we can lower the stress, improve digestion, improve absorption, make more blood. And so, you get this fully integrated system, personalized supplements, every single thing. And then not only that is the data scientist in the app is analyzing everything all the time. So at any point, like trackers, you just put data in. And you're putting data into the Conceivable app, but you have your data scientist who is looking at not just saying like, hey, you got 10,000 steps or you ate 2,000 calories. You hit the analyze button and the data scientist pops up and she's like, okay, here's the deal. Your energy is still a 5. Let's try to figure out what's going on, because if we don't get your energy up, nothing else is going to improve. And so she's like, all right, well, I see you're still getting 6 hours of sleep. Tell me about your sleep. Can you not fall asleep, stay asleep, or wake up rested? I can't fall asleep. Okay, then she knows what are the next questions to ask then. Oh, okay, tell me about your caffeine intake again. Oh, I usually have 4 cups of coffee. Okay, or if she already reported how much caffeine, tell me when you're drinking your caffeine. I have 2 in the morning and 2 at 4 o'clock in the afternoon when I get tired. Okay, so the treatment for the fatigue is actually to start switching to decaf in the afternoon. That's how you treat the underlying issue. Right? Then she starts sleeping better, and then her energy starts coming up, and over time she doesn't need the afternoon coffee.
Very interesting. Yeah. Self-empowerment is what it's all about. I mean, also you mentioned biohacking. Like I feel like it's such an overused term as well, but I like it. I mean, I feel like people use it in the wrong context so many times. Like they'll think of like eating organic, like it's biohacking. I don't really consider that. That's just healthy living. Like I feel like it's the proper use of technology, like maybe saunas or infrared light therapy to kind of optimize your health, right? I feel like you need to have the foundations, but then you can add like the extra percents to kind of upgrade. So,
and I think the thing that's mostly missing in biohacking is the meticulous tracking of outcomes. So say you add red light therapy, right? How can we measure if that's doing anything or not? Right? Is it maybe perceived energy? Does it impact HRV? Because I'm very, very obsessed with HRV right now, because it is the feedback tool. Like, is something helping or hurting? For exercise, you see, like, what happens to your HRV afterwards? Like, do you recover quickly enough? If not, you're over exercising and you're working against yourself with your exercise.
absolutely. Can you talk about HRV real quick? I haven't talked about that a whole lot.
Oh, sure. So HRV is very interesting. So it stands for heart rate variability, and this is not heart rate. People, I say, oh, my heart rate variability is 60. I'm like, no, that's probably your heart rate. That means if we check your heart rate, it's 60 beats averaged over 2 minutes. But if we watch your heart, if we're using a monitor and we're monitoring your pulse, and we can see it won't be 60, 60, 60, 60 for 2 minutes. It's actually going to have a lot of fluctuation. In fact, more fluctuation is a reflection of more resilience. So if you imagine, like I'm sitting in my room right now, and imagine I heard a really loud sound. So maybe my heart rate's like pretty low. I'm pretty calm right now, but I hear some loud sound outside and I get startled. I immediately go into flight or fright, and my heart rate variability will start to like get disrupted, right? If I'm resilient. But in non-resilient ones, it gets tighter. It's like, hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. In a resilient person, it's like, okay, try to harmonize, try to harmonize, try to harmonize, like a orange buoy on the ocean. And the low, low heart rate variability, the person's like, holy crap, holy crap, holy crap, don't do anything. And they stay in flight or fight exponentially longer. The person who can harmonize, they're like, oh, okay, that was just the garbage man. And then they can, like, in 30 minutes, re-down-regulate. And why that's important is because when we're in flight or fright, nothing can improve. In fact, we're pumping out cortisol that's not useful for, if you're a female, for your ovaries, for your uterine lining, for your uterus, any cell or tissue, makes you have belly fat, which no girl wants. And if you're a guy, it's very injurious to sperm. And so we want to be monitoring what percentage are we in flight or fright and rest and relax a lot, because it can help us to then see what are the things that raise heart rate variability. So what I have found is people are optimally resilient 100 and above. So most people, when I first start working with them, their heart rate variability is around 20, so don't be discouraged if it's really low. It will fluctuate. I like an app, like we have a wearable that we designed for a Conceivable, but if you, that can track that for you, but also There's an app called Welltory that's like $10 a month, and it does a really nice job with a really, really detailed breakdown of all of these numbers if you're kind of into it. This is a real biohacker tool because you get a lot of really discrete information, but the most important is like, what is your heart rate variability right now? And then instead of an average, like if you use the Apple Watch, they typically give you an average, which I don't think is very good because you're not seeing. I like to check it as soon as like maybe 30 minutes after I wake up to see how did I sleep? How much recovery? Like if my baseline is about 110, and if I wake up and it's not above 100, then I didn't sleep well. So then I'm going to think back what happened last night that it disrupted my sleep. Or if I exercise and it goes way down and it takes a really long time to recover, it's like I need more rest and recovery before I exercise again. That was too much and I need to exercise less. Right? You want to stay in basically the place where your body wants you. And what's unique about this is it's predictive of adverse birth events. It changes across a woman's menstrual cycle. It changes through pregnancy. It helps us determine certain risk factors, but it is also considered now one of the best predictors of longevity. So because it is really a total package reflection of sort of overall resilience, because if your heart rate variability is high, your resilience to stress is really high. So crazy stuff can be happening and you're like, okay, well, let's deal with it. But when it's low, it feels catastrophic. The exact same thing. And I've had this, mine has been as low as 6. And at 110, just whatever happens, you're like, okay, well, let's figure it out. I mean, what are we going to do? I mean, it's not like you're jumping up and down and you're happy about it, but you're just more tolerant and you don't, your blood pressure doesn't go up. You don't fall into flight or fright as much.
Absolutely. What can we actually do to start to improve our HRV?
That's a good question. So if you think of the thing that is basically the thing that controls HRV is the vagus nerve. It's a cranial nerve. It passes right through here. And the more stressed that you're in and the longer that you're stressed, imagine, even though it's a nerve, imagine it's a muscle, it gets flaccid. Its ability to pull you up out of flight or fright and pull you back becomes compromised. And so we want to do things that what they say is tone the vagus nerve. And the thing is it's so easy. Anything that vibrates the vagus nerve causes it to tone. So laughing. I literally tell people, especially if you have kids, you can just start like after dinner as a little, like instead of dessert, you're like, all right, let's get rid of all of the stress out of our bodies in this house. We're going to laugh as hard as we can for 1 minute. And I'm going to start and just set a timer. You start laughing like a crazy person, like hard belly laughing. If you have children, even if they're teenagers, they won't be able to not laugh. Your partner starts laughing. Everybody laughs as hard as you can. And you try to be crazy laughing so that it's fun. And the other people laugh harder. And then you laugh at them. And then the timer goes off. And I'm telling you, it's better than a margarita. You'll just be like, oh my God, I feel so good right now. But that really vibrates the vagus nerve. Ideally, we do it longer than a minute, these other things. Singing. So if you really want to do it when you're driving home from work or driving to the grocery store, wherever you drive, it's harder if you take a subway or a bus or a train. But make a playlist of the songs that you adore. The songs that when you hear those songs, you are singing no matter where you are. You don't care if you're at the opera, you're going to be singing under your breath at the song. Like for me, like it's Brick House, like shake it down, down. I mean, it's not no ballads. Like you want to really be singing out. They can be hymns, it can be whatever floats your boat. But put those on and sing a couple songs as loud and as hard as if you were the front man of that show. And then the last is breath work. Is incredibly good because breath work improves coherence, which is also impacted by that. Breathe with Sandy. I use a device called the Pulsetto. So it's not that cheap. And I'm not an affiliate of them. It's about $250, but it's basically this thing that goes around your neck. You put a little gel on your neck, and then it has 2 little prongs that sit right on the vagus nerve, and you turn it on, and then it manually vibrates the vagus nerve for 10 minutes. This is the easiest thing to do. I kind of do all those other things, but I try to do the Pulsetto 2 times a day. In the afternoon, as I start getting tired, I try not to let myself get to where like, oh, I'm so tired, I need to use the Pulsetto. I know that happens about 2 o'clock for me. So I use the Pulsetto beforehand. And then that's how I avoid, then I don't need any caffeine or anything to it helps a lot with focus because they have a burnout setting. And then again at bedtime.
Wow.
And then just monitor it.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I mean, it's such an important part of health. If I can add one, I would definitely say cold therapy, like use of cold plunges, cold showers. That's one of the top things for me. It's when I started doing that years ago, I just noticed I'm so much more resilient to things. So you're training your nervous system to kind of handle that stress, right?
How long do you
And
stay in your cold plunge when you cold plunge?
so I honestly just use a shower right now. So I just took 2, 3 minutes. That's all you really need to get the benefits. I mean, there's so many methods of doing it, but just like anything else, it's a practice. And just like with exercise, you are just starting off the habit, so you may not do it all the way. So maybe you do a few days a week, right? And then you don't do it as long. Same thing with cold. Maybe you do it for 30 seconds and then work your way up. So just practice. And this may sound weird, but you enjoy it at some point because like the benefits and you feel really good. So
I find it really for that because I hate being cold. Like I'm like a very cold natured person, like physically, not personally, and so the idea of cold therapy just seems horrifying to me. But I really trying to improve my resilience too. So what I did is your brain will just believe anything you tell it, including bad stuff. So we have to be really careful. And so before I started thinking like, I'm going to start doing cold, and I started telling people, I'm like, oh, I'm going to start doing cold shoulder showers. And it's like going to be so easy. I'm going to be shocked at how easy it is to tolerate like the cold and how good it's going to feel to be building my resilience. I just made up a narrative about it. And I started telling myself that a lot, kind of psyching myself up. And then when I'm in there and I'm cold, I'm like, oh my God, you just make it up, right? I'm getting so much more resilient. I can literally feel my cells becoming more resilient. And it's kind of the same like when you're holding your breath. And that really helps. And so one thing you can do if you're thinking about trying cold therapy is to just like go ahead and take your shower. You're probably not getting the full benefit, but take your shower and then the last minute or 30 seconds or whatever you can tolerate, just turn it to full on cold. And
absolutely.
and what's nice is it doesn't just immediately become cold. It kind of like as it's running out of the warm water, it's like colder, 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 and then you're like
Yeah.
really cold. But then you just have to instead of being like, I'm so cold, think of something else to tell yourself. You're like, oh my God, it's working. Oh my God, I'm getting so resilient. You just have to just trick yourself, because if you tell yourself, oh, I'm so cold, well, then you are going to be so cold, and that's what you're going to put your attention on.
That's
I
a
did
great
read it.
point.
And Anthony, I don't know if you've read this. I did see some studies recently that showed that like even just 30, like somebody was taking like they did a study where they had people take like a stainless steel bowl and put water in it, like half of it, and then in the morning you just put like water on top of it, let it sit for a few minutes till it gets icy cold, and 30 seconds, just your face is all you need. That's what I read. I
I
haven't
have heard of
confirmed that.
that.
I don't know if that's true, but that seems
Yeah.
easier and good for your like if you're aging, probably
Yeah. I
for
mean,
your skin,
for sure. Like
collagen.
when you get your head in there, it activates something called the mammalian dive reflex. So it's like that kind of shock that you feel under cold water, and over time that kind of goes away in a sense 'cause your body becomes more resilient. And
Oh,
if I can add something like how to approach the cold, because how you do anything is how you do everything, right? So be intentional and like
I
not just
like
doing the
that.
practice, but understanding it and knowing why you're doing it, how you're doing it, and then like how you do it makes it makes it more enjoyable in a sense. You can like focus on your purpose and things like that, but really focus on the breath, right? Just kind of balance that state of calm because how are you going to be in a stressful situation? Like something's on you at chaos. What do you want to do? You want to be at calm, that eye of the tornado, and just take that on. Like as you said, it's like as this coward way of being, just going there. "Oh, this is not how you do it, right? You want to be resilient, and then you train your nervous system for that under chaos.
I love that. I have never thought about it like that. And that is really one, that's such a good reminder is how you do anything is how you do everything. And
Yeah.
it's really a good check and balance because if you really live that way, when you want to do something half-assed, you're like, am I just half-assed? Like, because if how you do anything is how you do everything, it's kind of like lying. I only had two rules in my house when I was raising my children. Always be kind to yourself and everybody else and never lie. Because if you lie even a little bit, you're a liar, you know,
Yeah, I love that.
right? Because that means it means that at some point it's okay to lie to you. And I need to be able to, if I'm going to back you, if you get into trouble and you're like, Mom, I swear I didn't do it, but I know that sometimes you lie, that's going to be hard for me. But if I know for sure, even if to your own, demise, that you will tell me the truth, then I can easily, I'll be like, this kid does not lie. They did not do it, and I will go all the way to you. But if you lie sometimes to get yourself out of trouble, then that's going to be a harder conversation.
Yeah, I love that. So back to fertility, I'm curious, like, what are the environmental factors that you see are causing fertility problems, right? Because I'm sure fertility was not an issue hundreds of years ago as it is today, right? So there's obviously something going on. For you, what do you see that is the cause?
Well, I think it's multifactorial, right? Starting with what we talked about earlier, with people thinking like, if I look like I can like be an Instagram model, that I must be very healthy and fertile. Like that's really a big problem. I think our food quality is extremely low almost everywhere. Like I'm with my friends right now in Kauai, and they have kind of a big property. There are avocado trees, orange trees, mango trees, star fruit, vegetables growing. Like for the last week, I haven't really eaten anything that didn't come out of the ground nearby me. And I feel amazing, right? Like
Yeah.
nothing has touched a store, nothing's been on a ship in a box. Like literally we just go out into the yard and like take stuff. And that isn't true of my life when I live in this, on the mainland. It's like, this quality of food is that. But plastic is really bad. Plastic, you asked the question about environmental factor, because like both BPAs and phthalates have been shown to seriously disrupt hormones, fertility. They can cross, basically there's like a blood-brain barrier around the testicle that protects the sperm, and BPAs and phthalates can permeate that barrier and enter the sperm and change the DNA of the sperm and change the DNA of the sperm of the offspring that sperm produces, making a generational impact. And in particular, it affects the brain and respiratory system of especially males. And so, small things are like even just your cutting boards. Plastic cutting boards are a huge source of plastic because every time you cut, little tiny particles of plastic come out and get stuck to your food, and then you're ingesting them. And then for women in particular, like all the things that we put on our skin, right? Lotions and products and makeup, and you just have to, just cleaning those up and choosing really clean products can also make a really big difference. And then scented products. So Febreze is probably the worst thing you can have in your house. It's so bad for your hormones because it is such a BPA, hormone disruptor. Anything that's scented, so scented candles, if it's not like a soy candle or a true beeswax candle scented with real essential oils, because even if they say essential oils, you can make a synthetic essential oil, and then that's going to do the same thing as Febreze. So you have to be really, really, I just use a diffuser because I like to use scent, and then you can use really high quality essential oils so that the scent is helping you as opposed to hurting you.
Absolutely. Amazing points there. If I can follow up, so you mentioned you eat a lot of local food right now, and I feel like that's important to have health as well because it's great to have access to food from everywhere, right? Because we get access to a lot of cool things, but we have to keep in mind a lot of times when you get produce, it's sitting on the shelf for weeks, and when you pick that food, it starts to lose its nutrients right away. So it's going to be a world of difference whether you're doing what you're doing right now and going out in the yard or you're doing it from local farmers market because local farmers market, they may pick it that morning, right? So if you have those around you, which most people do, take advantage of that. And then you mentioned that thing of essential oils. It's crazy because you're right. It's not regulated in a sense. You can go to Meyer and get a bottle of frankincense, but it's literally just chemicals. It's no regulation. So sourcing on that, yeah, those are some great points you made there.
Yeah, like I only know like doTERRA is a
Yeah,
very, very well, like if you're going to buy essential oils, they're a premium, you're going to spend a lot. But in my mind, it's like, well, it's probably worth it because I don't know how to verify any other brand's quality and purity, and I know that they are, well vetted. So if you're looking for essential oils and you don't know who to buy from, you can look online at doTERRA, and they have tons.
Yeah.
And if
Young,
you
Li-
really want to, Young Living, is it Young Living or Young
yeah.
Life?
Young Living.
Yeah, and if you want to get into essential oils, sometimes on Facebook Marketplace, you can buy like a whole kit.
Okay.
Like used, that somebody just like, okay, I'm not into essential oils anymore, or somebody died, unfortunately, or whatever, and, the other person's like, I don't care about these. So that can be a way to get like, a bunch of essential oils or a starter kit more affordably.
Yeah, I mean, I use Young Living and Essential Oil Wizardry. I mean, there's a lot of great companies out there, but like they go above and beyond. So I feel like because there's a certain quality of essential oils that you don't really get anywhere else because it's a plant essence. It's just there's something special about it.
Oh, yeah. And I think that Young Living is the people who make Thieves.
I feel like Thieves is pretty popular among many brands, but yeah, they do have that.
Yeah. But I think that Young Living makes them because it's basically essential oils. And so, yeah, and that's another thing, like what cleaning products are very injurious to our hormones. So,
Absolutely.
What you put, especially your dishwasher puck, is really gross because it leaves this film on your plates. And true confessions, I keep some of those good pucks, and maybe once a month I'll run everything to get everything just like really, really clean because I feel like I just make my own dishwasher soap. It doesn't work as good as the pucks, but I don't want all the chemicals, so I'm willing to wash a little bit more. Sometimes in Austin we have a lot of limestone, so sometimes they just feel kind of schmutzy that I can't seem to get off. So, again, you have to, somebody said, I can't believe you use a microwave. And I was like, well, if I didn't use it's not ideal, but if I didn't use a microwave, I'd eat more takeout. Because I would get lazy and too hungry and then go get takeout. So, you kind of have to balance like what's the lesser of the two evils.
Yeah, back to customized health, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm very glad you brought up cleaning products because those are such a hazardous thing that a lot of people don't think about. When we talk about holistic health, it can be a massive journey because I just think about where I am today in terms of wellness and the journey I've been on. It is a huge learning process, and a lot of it is becoming aware of things, right? Because we talk about personal cleaning products. They can be all-purpose cleaners. They can be like the dishwasher, like all these things. And the reality is the natural ones are very effective. We just back to the mindset of, you know, like the cold in a sense. Like it's just because a lot of times we do uneducated. Like we just think this is the way it is. The reality
Because
is,
that's what our mom said.
yeah, we're just used to it. It's our paradigm. But in many cases, they are just as effective.
Yeah. And it's a much nicer experience for the cleaner. It's not so,
Absolutely.
and sometimes I work with women whose job is they do, their house cleaner is their job. And, all day they're getting exposed to so much bad stuff. And she's like, the problem, she goes, I want to use the clean stuff, but my customers want me to use bleach. They want me to use Fabulosa. They want me to use Tide to clean their laundry with all this scent. And I was like, well, you're going to have to just make a decision. Like, maybe it's time to rebrand yourself as the clean house cleaner. You know what I mean? Or whatever. Because there are people who will want that.
Yeah.
And you don't have to ditch your because people have to make a living. I don't want to say like, you just need to quit everything and start over. But it's like you could start this new thing and start attracting new clients. And then when you had enough, you can tell the old clients, like, listen, here's the deal. I'm switching to all clean. Do you want to stay or go? And then,
Yeah,
I can't imagine. And I think if you're trying to do cleaning, there's some really good tools, like some of those, the steamers actually make it, you can buy cheap on TikTok or whatever, Amazon, those steam cleaners so that they can actually help you get like really glommy stuff off of. And then they have those spinning cleaning brushes that really make it like, if I use Thieves and leave it on there and then use that one, because then I don't have to use as much elbow grease, it gets spotless.
Yeah. And you mentioned the experience for the cleaner. Like, it is kind of enjoyable cleaning, like, in a sense, like, as in of itself, it's kind of like, I don't know, kind of gets people in the flow state sometimes. But I like to just get, like, a cleaner, and then I add a lot of Thieves oil to it. So I, Thieves oil is a very good cleaner, but also, the smell is so good.
Yeah, all
And
clovey.
yeah. And I'm sure you know this, but, people, once you're unhealthy, and you become healthy, you start to become more sensitive to chemicals and sense that you actually realize how you feel. Because a lot of people, they wear perfume and all these things, they don't understand how it's making them feel, and how it can be relating to them constantly sneezing and their allergies and all these things. Which, oh, it smells good, but I find that these things no longer smell good to me because I know, because I don't feel good when I'm around it. And these are things you start to become more aware of and more sensitive to as you progress along the journey.
No, it's so true. It's even with food, like if you're eating really badly, which all of us have been in a place where we've eaten really badly, you're just like, whatever, you just get into a habit. Like you just eat out and then you eat worse, and then suddenly you're eating McDonald's and you're like, how did I get here? But, and then you're like, but you just kind of get numb. You don't feel good. You're just surviving. But then if you kind of clean everything up and then you go eat some fast food, you're like, oh man, I feel horrible. You feel poisoned.
Yeah.
So I really relate to what you're saying, because it is a challenge to, like for me, it's been really nice because my friend cooks everything that we're eating, and like we've just been eating nothing but whole food, and they don't do dairy or gluten either. So I've mostly been eating like meat, vegetables, nuts, and beans, and pretty much everything fresh. But what my friend, she's very into homesteading now, and so she basically, we have like 2 huge tangerine trees, and just like thousands of tangerines a day you could eat. But she's been saving the peels, and so she packed them into a mason jar and then filled it with vinegar and left it and turned it into like a cleaning product.
Wow.
Like strained it out.
Yeah, definitely.
I love that. Just there's a guy on Facebook called maybe he's like the Spicy Italian. Have you seen him? You'd probably like him, Anthony.
I have not.
He basically, I think he lives in Italy, and they just like are homesteading, and they're like doing everything themselves. You know what I mean? Like,
Okay.
here's what you should do with your beet greens to, whatever. And I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Kirsten, this has been awesome. I really appreciate you sharing your story with us. It's really empowering to hear people who have been through their own struggles and have come out the other side of service, just like you are. And you have a lot of great information you put out there. You're helping a lot of people. And again, thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's been really awesome.
It's really been my pleasure, and so nice to connect with you, and really enjoyed it. If anybody is interested in improving their period or their fertility, please visit us at conceivable.com. That's the easiest way to get in touch with us, and let us know how we can help.
Awesome. Is there anywhere else that people like to connect with you, social media or anything like that?
Sure. I'm always like, because I think TikTok's going away, but currently TikTok is where I'm most active. So if you want to follow me there at Your Fertility Expert. There's another one on TikTok that's only about periods, The Period Expert.
Awesome. All right. I appreciate you again so much and coming on to share all your amazing insights with us. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. It's been lovely.
Absolutely.